J.J. Okocha, so good they named him twice. Really? Born Austin Okocha, J.J. Okocha's name never eludes the lips of African football fans whenever there is a debate about the continent's greatest ever in the game. Okocha's name gets mentioned right up there with the likes of Didier Drogba, Samuel Eto'o, Yaya Toure, Emmanuel Adebayo, Michael Essien, Abedi Pele, and some even genuinely believe he is the greatest of all time. Known for his insane trickery with the ball at his feet, sublime free kicks particularly in his Fenerbahce days, and his famous Okocha turn, where he toyed with legendary goalkeeper Oliver Kahn and several other Karlsruher players before blasting the ball home, J.J. Okocha was no doubt a delight to watch in his days. But to label him one of the greatest African footballers of all time? No chance. This is not golf. You don't get massive applause from just one single perfect swing. For a guy who, in his decade-long career, never played for any big club, never won a league title with 8 different clubs, never won African Footballer of the Year award, managed not even a single vote after his one and only Ballon d'Or nomination in 1995, it is pretty much insane that J.J. Okocha gets mentioned amongst Africa's greats. Tell you what, J.J. Okocha's only real achievements in football are his 2 international trophies he won with Nigeria, the African Cup of Nations in 1994 against a weak Zambian team formed after the old potent one had suffered air accident a year before, and the 1996 Olympic football gold medal, where Okocha actually missed a crucial penalty versus Brazil in the semis when Nigeria were 3-1 down. Even in the final, when Nigeria made that spectacular comeback against Argentina to win gold, Okocha had by then been axed onto the bench. So, in fact, rather than the national hero he has been purported to be in, Okocha was actually carried by his teammates. And even in that 1994 Cup of Nations win in Tunisia, he was quite lucky to have found himself in the midst of Nigeria's all-time greatest squad, which included legendary players like the late Stephen Keshi, Samson Siasha, Daniel Amokachi, Finidi George, and striker Rashidi Yekini, who emerged as both the tournament's top scorer and best player. So, now the million-dollar question. What really is J.J. Okocha's football legacy? Does he even have one? Or is it just today's age of social media that has been rather kinder to his profile as an exciting, gifted, and entertaining midfielder? Let us explore his career in detail so you can make the judgment for yourself. Like many other African football stars in their native countries, J.J. Okocha began his football career on Enugu streets in Enugu State, Nigeria. Football was all the young Okocha knew, and when local folks saw him play, they thought his touches were super neat, and his ability to take people on with ease was a rare find. It did not take long for folks in the neighborhood to whisper amongst themselves that Okocha was twice the player his elder brother, James, was, so they started to call him JJ, meaning double of J, since James's street name was J, and that was how Okocha's maiden name, Austin, got replaced with JJ to become J.J. Okocha. When he came of age, particularly in 1990, he joined Enugu Rangers in a bid to take his promising talents professional, but he did not make any real impact there, as football for him at the time was purely for entertainment, for which he did not ever have to break a sweat for if he wanted to thrill the audience. Whether this idea of football for him was ever going to change, only time was going to tell. Sometime that year, JJ's friend, Binebi Numa, extended an invitation to him to come over to Germany to see for himself what crazy football culture they had there, adding that maybe he would be lucky enough to find a team by the time his visit was over. Germany had won the 1990 FIFA World Cup, and the whole country was in decorum, so this felt more like an opportunity to chase rather than a risk to take. And JJ was willing to chase. When JJ landed in Germany, he accompanied Binebi Numa to training one morning. Binebi Numa, at the time, played for German Division 3 side Neunkirchen. And that 2-hour training session immediately felt like JJ's trial with the Neunkirchen coach, having fallen in love with JJ's skills right after the session, earmarked to him that he was going to sign him onto his team, so he should return the next day. JJ returned the next day, the coach kept his word, and by the end of the day's session, J.J. Okocha was a new Neunkirchen player. This felt like the ultimate miracle, but there were even bigger ones on the way, coming for a man of J.J.'s talents. He played for only a year in Neunkirchen colors before he was poached by Division II side Saarbrücken, only to be poached again a few months after by Bundesliga giants FC Frankfurt. From the streets of Enugu all the way to Eintracht Frankfurt in less than 2 years. It does not get better than this. The sky was definitely the limit for Okocha. Well, that is what everyone thought, until it was time to actually produce on the pitch. You see, Okocha's transition from a street footballer to a full-fledged professional in Germany's top-flight league was a huge gamble because it had happened too quickly. And so, though his talents remained unquestionable, his work ethic for a professional was always going to be a work in progress. But Frankfurt manager, the legendary Jupp Heynckes, was running out of patience. Even still, first few seasons had all the beginner's luck, and Okocha and his new Frankfurt team, which had fellow African star Ghana's Tony Yeboah, placed third on the Bundesliga log at the end of the final match day of the 1992-1993 Bundesliga season, same position as the season before, qualifying for the European Cup at the end. And in case you were wondering, Okocha managed 2 goals in 20 appearances in his maiden Bundesliga season. The following 1993-1994 season was more like a challenge for Okocha and Frankfurt as they went as far as the quarter-final of the European Cup. But their promising performances in the inter-club competition took a toll on them and their Bundesliga campaign, meaning they finished 5th in the Bundesliga. Need I remind you that the Okocha signing was meant to be a step up, but his 2 goals in 19 Bundesliga appearances that 1993-1994 season was almost a failure. Some tough conversations had to be had at the end of the season, and Okocha was at the center of that. Already, manager Jupp Heynckes had started having doubts about Okocha's commitments to the team, particularly his defensive duties. The thing with Okocha was, you were not the player you were getting on a match day. For a creative midfielder, he was almost unbeatable on the ball, but his real problem lay with the uncountable number of times he lost the ball while attempting audacious stuff, and worse off, how little he offered the team in terms of recovering the ball whenever he lost it. After many coach-player talks, it had then become clear to Heynckes that some bold decisions needed to be taken concerning Okocha and a few other big boys in the team. Tony Yeboah was also one of those big boys, but it was difficult to question the commitment of the team's top scorer with 20 goals in all competitions, who even secured the Bundesliga top scorer award both that season and the one before. But when it came to Okocha, the idea of the player was much more beautiful than the reality, as he was always nothing more than good entertainment for the fans. All of his dazzling displays and tricky turns on the pitch only counted for skill of the match or dribble of the game, nothing much for either an assist or goal, which really won games. This is not to say J.J. Okocha did not contribute to the goals or assists at all, and we know better not to judge an attacking midfielder with only goals and assists. But this is to say Okocha's football was largely unproductive for a player who saw most of the ball and sometimes even slotted into the center-forward role. Through the turmoil that was brewing at Frankfurt that 1993-1994 season, however, Okocha earned his first cap for Nigeria's Super Eagles in a World Cup qualifier game against Ivory Coast. They lost that game 3-1, with Okocha having no real impact on the game. But a few days later, Okocha looked to have rediscovered his mojo as he announced himself to the Super Eagles fans by scoring a spectacular free kick to kickstart a 4-1 comeback against Algeria. That emphatic victory meant Nigeria had qualified to their first ever World Cup tournament in 1994. Okocha went on to win the Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Tunisia that year, and like I mentioned earlier, that Nigeria team was more than Okocha. In fact, J.J. was only still a newbie, and he was merely part of a winning star-studded team, instead of, say, their talisman of some sort. Nigeria's AFCON win in '94 meant the team was in good spirits heading into the World Cup that summer, and even though the team historically made the knockout stages, J.J. Okocha left the tournament with neither a goal nor assist, but many attempted dribbles. Could bet that was a highly successful campaign for him, though. He returned to Frankfurt that summer for his third season at the club, but the team continued to retrogress even more. He recorded his best goal tally yet with 7 goals, but Frankfurt dropped 4 more places to finish 9th on the Bundesliga table at the end of the season, and that was a real disaster. And if that season was a disaster, wait for the following 1995-1996 season, where Frankfurt got relegated from the top flight league. Before the end of that season, however, Okocha had fallen out of favor and eventually out with manager Henkes, and so Frankfurt had to move him on. This was more of an attempt to boot him out to facilitate the club's rebuild than anything else, and so Frankfurt accepted a bid as low as £1 million from Fenerbahce to make it happen. His transfer to the Turkish side meant Okocha left Frankfurt after 4 seasons. He featured 116 times, bagged 25 goals, and contributed 18 assists, but major trophies none. At Fenerbahce, J.J. Okocha found his level as he immediately became a fan favorite. He was either scoring or assisting goals every other match, while still very much entertaining fans with his usual audacious dribbling and toying with opposition defenses. With only 2 seasons spent in Turkey, Okocha managed to contribute to more goals than he had ever done in all his career until then. And it was also in Turkey that he seemed to have perfected his free kick technique, even though the numbers attributed to him in that regard are often overblown. I mean, we know he scored quite a number of goals from free kicks, but you shall never find him on any list about players with most goals from free kicks ever. It is an Okocha thing. More hype, less numbers to back the hype up. Anyway, to put his time in Turkey into retrospect though, in his first season in the Turkish top flight division, Okocha scored 16 times, then 14 times the season after, to ensure that he was heading for the France 1998 tournament with Nigeria that summer in red-hot form. And even if he still did not make any real impact at the global football tournament, his good club form in Turkey was enough to get him a then record fee for any African player. £14 million moved to PSG ahead of the 1998-1999 football season. At PSG, Okocha teamed up with stars like Pochettino, Arteta, Anelka, and later on Ronaldinho, whom Okocha apparently mentored for some time, and I would have so much love to talk you through what was expected to be a wonderful 4 years in France for JJ and his new teammates. But unfortunately, there are no real high moments to even build up to. 4 goals in 25 appearances, 2 goals plus 2 assists in 23 appearances, 2 goals plus 16 appearances, and finally, 4 goals plus 3 assists in 20 appearances were all that J.J. Okocha managed in his 4-season spell at PSG. He and PSG did win the French Super Cup in his first season, though, but that was nothing more than what the English call the Community Shield, and it does not count for much, if ever something at all. At the end of his contract at the French club, he had become one of the club's highest earners, but his package had become far too expensive given the limited impact he gave on the field, so PSG had to let him walk. This was the second time he had been considered surplus to requirement in his career. How many times have we seen big teams circling around big players who had only become free agents in the past years, fighting for their signatures? Like, countless times. Even these days, like in the cases of Antonio Rudiger to Madrid, and more recently, Kylian Mbappe to Madrid, the big clubs go the extra mile of asking the players to run their contracts down, so they would sign them for free. And as someone who did not watch Okocha in real life, but heard tales of his supposed greatness, you would have expected that him leaving PSG as a free agent, top teams would have vied for his signature, right? But no, Okocha did not have any real suitors, when he left PSG in 2002, except for lower-table Premier League side, Bolton Wanderers. Oh, yep, this is not a drill. His Premier League career did not start on a brighter note, though, as J.J Okocha was hooked off at halftime in debut versus Fulham. He, however, finished the season with 7 league goals, and he was hugely impactful for making Bolton one of the most entertaining sides in the league, though. But again, the continent's greatest players play to win trophies, not this. Okocha's seniority earned him the captain's armband at the beginning of his second season at the club, and his skills and deft touches made him the Premier League's Player of the Month in November 2003. But his off-field gimmicks, particularly relating to the premature announcement of his supposed move to Qatar at the end of 2005-2006 season, saw the armband stripped away from him 6 months before his departure. He would eventually depart the Premier League, having managed a grand total of 14 goals in 124 appearances. Again, don't ask about trophies, because surviving relegation in all those 4 seasons at Bolton were more than trophies. Well, I don't know how that sounded, but it is just what it is. In Qatar, Okocha joined Qatar SC, and though the coach said they signed J.J. to win silverware, they ended up finishing 6th in a league of 10 teams. By then, age was far catching up with J.J., and injuries too were setting in for a weak body, and so J.J. had to double down and return to England, but this time in the Championship with Hull City ahead of the 2007-2008 season. When he was asked why the shocking move to England's second division, J.J. astonishingly said, God had told him to go there. But his time there did not seem so godly ordained, as he spent 2 seasons in the Championship, where Hull actually did gain promotion into the Premier League in his second season, albeit J.J. had by then fallen out with the coach because he was not getting played. His limited playing time had made him consider hanging his boots, but he later changed his mind, thinking he would be playing in the Premier League next season following Hull's promotion. But the club told him, "No chance. We did this without you, and we are more than happy to go on without you next season." And so, they released him. From there, with him struggling to find a new club, he decided to retire at age 34. You may be wondering why I never talked much about Okocha's days in a Nigerian shirt, or why I never went into details about his 1996 Olympic gold medal win and 1994 African Cup win. But truth is, there is nothing illustrious there to explore. In fact, the 1996 Nigeria Olympic gold-winning team were dubbed the Dream Team by U.S. press due to the insane number of talents the team had, and Okocha at the time was not even a guaranteed starter in the team. But should we even say Okocha won the Africa Cup and Olympics? Then what again? Would you believe that when the Nigerian legends that won these titles retired and Okocha became captain of the Super Eagles in 2002, the team never played in any AFCON final in 3 consecutive attempts from 2002 to 2006? At the World Cup too, Okocha appeared 9 times in 3 editions from 1994 to 2002, but he has no memorable goal or assist on the world stage. Not to talk of him never winning CAF's most coveted individual prize, the African Footballer of the Year, ever. But when you consider the likes of which Okocha has always been compared to Drogba, Eto'o, Toure, Essien, Adebayo, these players did remarkable things with both their clubs and countries. Drogba, for example, would leave Chelsea and come play in the AFCON for a month and still lead Chelsea to the Premier League trophy. Toure won the African Player of the Year 4 times, but you know what Okocha has? 30 minutes compilations of dribbling skills and majestic touches on YouTube, which every player actually has, by the way. In terms of Premier League legacy, even his Nigerian compatriot Mikel Obi has a better legacy than J.J Okocha. And as if scamming his way into African GOAT debates were not enough, Okocha has since retiring been trying to scam the entire African continent some more by teaming up with sports betting platforms, more recently, Bet King Nigeria, to commission African youth into gambling. Is this your goat?